All right, everyone. Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro utterly humiliates Emmanuel Macron over his criticism of Bolsonaro's response to the Amazon fires. That's what we're talking about. On today's video, we'll also be talking about how the mainstream media has been lying to you about the Amazon fires and what climatologists, those who know what they're talking about here, actually have to say about them. But first, you still have time to get my first ever nationalist populist book bundle at a 20% discount just for you. For a limited time, you can get 5 of my best books on the rise of a new conservative age, which is required reading during these crazy times in which we're living. You'll get The Return of Christendom. You'll get The New Nationalism, The Triumph of Tradition. I'm like a model here, right? You'll get President Trump and Our Post-Secular Future, and you'll get Uprising on how the Yellow Vest protests are already beginning to change the globalist world order. Now, if you order this bundle now, you can save 20% off the cover price of each of these books sold separately. So don't delay. Click on the link below and enjoy this nationalist populist book bundle and savor the rise of a new conservative age. All right, the war of words between the nationalist populist and traditionalist Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro and the globalist, elitist, and radically secular French President Emmanuel Macron, shall we say, heated up the other day over the fires raging in the Amazon. Macron criticized Bolsonaro's handling of the fires. He suggested that Europe get involved in bringing them under control since Bolsonaro's government has thus far demonstrated the inability to do so. That caused Bolsonaro to fire back at Macron, saying, hey, wait a minute, you couldn't even prevent the fire and the significant destruction of the world's most famous cathedral, and you're going to lecture us about fire safety? The Bolsonaro government also turned down $20 million offered by G7 nations to help fight the fires, stating that, look, mechanisms for international involvement and aid to solve issues like the Amazon fire already exist. We don't need any special help here. And Macron needs to stop acting like he knows better than the rest of us. That attitude from Macron is more akin to his colonialist sentiments than anything else. In fact, one spokesman for the Brazilian government said that Brazil is a democratic and free country that never had the colonialist imperialist past characteristic of Macron's France, a colonialist imperialism that continues to be evident in Macron's propensity towards forcing globalization on everyone else. Now, what seemed to spark this... I'm sorry. I don't mean to punish you with the pun, but what did seem to spark this whole rift between France and Brazil was when Macron posted an image of what was allegedly the forest fires on Twitter, calling them an international crisis and urging the G7 to act. Now, the embarrassment in all this was that the photo turned out to be from a photographer who died nearly 20 years ago. And so, of course, it wasn't a photo of the current rainforest fires. But the damage had already been done. Several celebrities and leftist activists shared the photo online, used as an opportunity to bash and slander the Bolsonaro administration. So Brazilian conservatives in turn began to mock Macron online. And Bolsonaro himself, he couldn't resist. So when he saw a post of a picture of himself with his wife next to a picture of Macron and Macron's wife, Brigitte Macron, with the caption, "Now you understand why Macron persecutes Bolsonaro," the implication being that Macron was jealous of Bolsonaro's wife. Now, I don't know who posted that picture and comment originally, but Bolsonaro saw it and he had a little fun with it. And he commented, "Don't humiliate the guy, LOL," right? Laugh out loud. And so freaking Macron gets all upset. Macron gets all upset, comes out and lambasts Bolsonaro for insulting his wife. And Macron, in typical globalist fashion, said that it was obvious that Brazilian women are ashamed of their president and that he expects very soon Brazilians will have a different president that behaves up to their expectations. Right, Macron's abysmal poll numbers are a model for other world leaders, right? I know I'd like to take political advice from a president that has a sub 30% approval rating. I mean, I think Macron has to be worried about his own re-election. Now, this rift between Bolsonaro and Macron aside. There's no question that the corporatist globalist media has used the occasion of the Amazon fires to batter Bolsonaro with negative press. The so-called mainstream media, which I think better ought to be called the Marxist media, has hated Bolsonaro from day one. Very similar to the way the Marxist media has treated Donald Trump from the moment he got into the presidential race right back in 2015. And this is because Brazil was considered a safe haven, right, for the Marxists. Remember back in the early 90s, after the Soviet Union fell, you had what was called the Sao Paulo Forum, which featured a meeting between people like Fidel Castro and Lula and Chavez and all these Marxist communists. And they basically said, what just fell in Europe will rise in Latin America. And so Brazil has been under Marxist domination for 30 years. It's been under a Marxist regime in some way, shape, or form for over 30 years. So they were considered a safe haven for left-wing globalism. And Jair Bolsonaro, in a matter of months, destroyed it. He's crushing this Marxist safe haven and reinventing Brazil as a new nationalist, populist, and traditionalist nation. And the Marxist media hate him for it. For example, Bolsonaro has recently abolished all LGBT propaganda from the public school curriculum throughout the nation, and they're replacing it with pro-Christian, pro-traditionalist cultural material. And so, of course, the media is freaking out over all this, right? They're saying, how dare you, Bolsonaro, destroy our attempt to destroy the family, right? Now, one of the ways we can see how deceitful the media has been in all this is with their coverage of the Amazon fires, okay? I don't know how much you've been reading on this, but both traditional and social media have gone utterly insane covering the fires in the Amazon, particularly the fires in Brazil. And there are a number of climatologists who are coming out and saying, there's a lot of hysteria and misinformation that's being spread out there. I was very appreciative of an analysis provided by climatologists over at AccuWeather. And the piece compares images of global fires from 2000 to what's going on today, and they look exactly the same, okay? At least for me, to the untrained eye. But that was his point. The fact is that the Earth has always been burning continually in some way, shape, or form. What's happening now is not atypical of what occurs every year in terms of global fires. Moreover, fires are hard to see via satellites. What's seen is actually the smoke, since the smoke thins out and drifts into much larger areas than the fires themselves. However, the untrained media eye often mistakes cloud formations for smoke, and so they're prone to exaggerate the extent of the fires. Again, climatologists have had to correct media activists, often because they've designated cloud coverings as evidence of smoke of raging fires. So the simple fact is that there are a lot of fires in South America, and that's not unusual. It's no more unusual than the fires we see so often in California, for example. Even the New York Times has admitted that the majority of these fires were actually set by farmers preparing Amazon-adjacent farmland for next year's crops. It happens every year. When all is said and done, there is simply no proof that Brazil is burning more today than it has in past years. According to Brazil's National Institute for Space Research, they've detailed over 76,000 wildfires over the years. What's going on now is no different than what's happened in past years. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is that these fires are not happening under a Marxist regime. That's the difference. These fires are happening under a nationalist, populist, and traditionalist government. And why would a Marxist media waste a good opportunity to try to bash and embarrass a nationalist, populist, and traditionalist government that represents a mortal threat to the future Marxist utopia that so many in the media are dedicated to realizing? That's the only difference here. Remember, and it's very important, the mainstream media does not report news. They fabricate it. They concoct it. They invent it, and then hope that such inventions and fabrications become truth in the eyes of the majority of populations. Fortunately, we're here to set the record straight. Now, before you go, I just posted a video on the Italian government crisis and the ousting of Matteo Salvini. I think you're going to find it very encouraging in the midst of all of our discouragements over this. And it is discouraging for sure, but make sure to click on the thumbnail at the top left of this video. And I think you'll appreciate how we put all this in a wide perspective, a long-range, longitudinal analysis for you. I think it's going to make you feel, I think it's going to make your day and make you feel a lot more positive what's going on. So I'll see you over there. God bless.